Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody to the last Governance and Audit Committee of this present administration. We've got apologies from Bob Williams, the lay member, and Councillor Darren Roberts. Have we got any other apologies?
I've not received any further apologies, Chair.
Okay. We then go on to item 2, declarations of interest, taking into account notes A and B. No declarations. Then go on to item 3. That's a report by Audit Wales certification of grants and returns for 2020-21. And I think it's Neil Hollis and Ian Phillips. Are both of you taking this particular report?
Thanks, Chair. That'll just be me for this one.
Oh, right. Okay. Welcome, Ian.
Neil, this is, sorry. Thanks. Yeah, the presentation just highlights the work that we've undertaken for our 2021 audit of grants from Merthyr. This comprised of 3 returns, which was the housing benefits, NNDR, and teachers' pensions. Total values of those being 51 million. The council submitted all of these returns to us on time. We submitted 2 of those by the original deadline and had an extension for the 3rd, which is the housing benefit return. One of these was there was no qualification for, and we had qualificational covering letters for the other 2 of those. Yeah, there was some impact of COVID-19 on this, in terms of the way we worked on this. Although the preparation deadlines were unchanged, and it's testament to the, as we put in the report, testament to the commitment of the officers that the work was undertaken when it was. So we'd like to pass on our thanks for those. But yeah, we completed all the work remotely, and evidence was received electronically. Yeah, the next page on that goes on to show the deadlines when we certified them, and just summarises what was completed on that. We also listed the observations and amendments with regards to the housing benefit. There's a few different things coming up in this, which meant that the work took a bit longer than was initially planned. But again, thanks to the council officers for their responsiveness. That's probably all I was just going to say on that, but yeah, I'm happy to take any questions if anyone's got any on those.
Thank you, Neil. Councillor David Chaplin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On page 6 of the summary, it says the authority generally has adequate arrangements in place for the production of coordinated, accurate, timely and properly documented grant claims and returns, though there is scope for further improvement. Is there scope for further improvement in a specific area, and is there any action the authority needs to take?
I think the page 5 of this, which highlights the issues we found with housing benefit, is probably where we're looking at, where there are a number of different issues in that, but we do so there are, I guess you could say, there's room for improvement on those. Do appreciate that the compilation of a housing benefit return is very complicated as well. Yeah, I don't know whether Helen, if you've got anything further to add on that one.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. No, I think just the housing benefits area, although we understand, that each case is different and it is hard to collect all the information that is required. And in the grand scheme of things, the observations and amendments that we found were very, very small kind of value-wise. So, it might seem that we're being really picky with these points, but this is the level of detail that the Department of Work and Pensions require us to report in. So no major concerns, just a few areas areas, specifically with the recording of the, the war disablement pensions, that type of thing. But sometimes it's difficult to get that information from individuals, so it can be tricky, and maybe no fault of the authority themselves. So yeah, the points reported in the grand scheme of things are very minor, really.
Okay, thank you much, Helen. Much appreciated.
Okay.
That's me finished, Clive. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'm just, well, on the point that's being raised and reported on there on page 9 about the war disablement pension rates not updated for 3 cases and incorrect for 1 case. Are there many of the war disablement pension rates? Is this a high number, or is it 4 out of a small number?
I don't have the actual figures to hand. I could go and get them. It is not a huge amount in comparison to the overall number of subsidy claims. To the extent, I believe that we look at the vast majority, if not all, of the between us and the council officers, they're all looked at. And I can't tell you the exact number, but it's low, relatively speaking.
Right. Okay. And on
I can go. Sorry.
Go on.
Sorry, I said I can go away and get that if that would be helpful.
Yes, I'd be interested to see what the 4 is out of how many cases they've got there. And on page 7, 3rd dot down, the first word is authorities provided flexibility, because this report is about this council, Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council. So when you refer to authorities, do you mean other councils or other agencies like the DOWP?
Shall I take that one? Yeah,
Yep.
it's
Yeah,
the
please,
it's
Helen,
the it's the awarding authority or the paying authority. So in this circumstance, the Department of Work and Pensions
Right.
recognise the strain that local authorities were under in compiling and answering audit queries with regard to housing benefit. So they're the ones that made the extension to the deadline.
Right. That answers that query. Thanks.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from members? No? Any comments from members? No? Not any comments? Can I thank you, Neil, for your report, and Helen? And then we go on to item 4, that's Audit Wales Audit Plan 2020. Who's taken this report, Helen?
Chair, it's me, Sarah Jane Byrne, and then I'm joining Neil's going to talk through the financial audit aspects.
I was given a few names this morning, and
Yeah,
I was told that you weren't going to be here this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks, Chair. So Neil and I will talk you through the 2022 audit plan, which broadly sets out our financial audit and our performance audit work for the forthcoming year. So as it says on the first page, it sets out the 3 duties, why we're required to do this work. And they're the paragraphs 3, 4 and 5. So it's around the audit of the financial statements, the value for money arrangements and the sustainable development principle. And at the bottom of that page, obviously, you won't be surprised to see, we're just reflecting on the impact of COVID-19. Obviously, we're low level, well, 0 level now, but obviously, should things change, then we will discuss what the impact of that may be or for our work with officers. Okay, I think I'm going to hand over to Neil now to talk you through the financial audit work, and then I'll pick up the performance audit work.
So I'd just like to draw your attention to paragraphs 8 to 13, which set out our responsibilities in relation to the audit. Exhibit 1 then sets out the risks that we've identified. So these include a management override, which is a risk that we believe is present in all organisations. We've then also got as other risks the impact of COVID. We've had that as a significant risk in other years, but we believe that given it's a few years on and the council have had time to firm in place procedures and things. So this is just listed as another risk this year. We've also got the restatement of the prior year's accounts, which is required as a result of the council's restructure. The potential treatment of Welsh Government funding, the impact of COVID on the valuation of the council's assets, and also any work on the disclosure note for IFRS 16, which is a new standard which is meant to be coming in. There is a possibility that that standard will not be coming in for next year, maybe a 2-year delay on it, but that's not been confirmed yet. If that is the case, then that risk will not be relevant anymore. Going further on the plan, just point to paragraph 27, which states the grant work which we will undertake later in the year, and also paragraphs 28 to 29, which detail the statutory responsibilities which we have to local electors. I'm going to pass back to Sarah now.
Okay, thanks, Neil. So looking at paragraphs 15 onwards then, so which picks up the performance audit aspects. So you'll be aware we've adopted a flexible approach to our performance audit in the last couple of years, and we intend to carry on with that approach. And if you've seen our recent work programme consultation, which is recently been launched on our website, I think the desire to continue with that flexible approach will continue. So as it says in paragraph 17, we undertake most of our work through what we call our assurance and risk assessment project, which I'll come into a bit more about shortly. You'll also be aware that we've previously consulted public bodies on how we're going to, or our approach to auditing in terms of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And as a result of that consultation, we are integrating our sustainable development considerations in our local and national work, but we will also carry out specific work in relation to the setting of wellbeing objectives, and we'll discuss the timing of that work with officers during the course of the year. So our performance audit programme then is set out in Exhibit 2. So in terms of the assurance and risk assessment process, or ARA as you might sometimes hear it being called, this is very much a project, as it says there, to identify the level of audit assurance and also to help us determine where we might need to focus our work in future years. And it's very much focused around the council putting in place its proper arrangements to secure value for money, but also in terms of acting in accordance with the Sustainable Development Principle. And in that table, we've set out some areas that our work will focus on this year. So financial position, and that'll be across all 22 councils. Capital programme management, again, we intend to do something on capital programme management at most councils this year. Use of performance information, and we're looking at with a particular focus on service user feedback and outcomes. And again, that's a piece of work we'll do at most councils this year. And I mentioned the setting of wellbeing objectives, and that will depend whether the council chooses to reset their wellbeing objectives post the elections. I'm sure you won't be surprised to see that we'll be wanting to continue our focus in looking at the council's progress in meeting the recommendations that we made in our report last year. Sorry, there should be capital M there for March, and the report that we published last year. And we're also intending to do more in-depth work around some of the core arrangements as part of our ARA work. So leisure, service planning, whistleblowing, there are a couple of them. We'll keep the council posted in terms of what those areas of focus will be. We're also going to be doing thematic reviews, and thematic reviews are a piece of work that we do across all 22 councils. The one that we will be doing is, as it says there, is around unscheduled care. I'm sure you probably won't be surprised to see that in there, given all the challenges that have been faced in the health and social care sector at the moment. We're also intending to do another thematic review, but the topic of this will depend on the outcome of the work programme consultation I mentioned. So the closing date for that consultation is coming up. I believe it's the 8th of April. It is available on our website if anyone is interested in looking at that. But I will obviously give further updates to the Governance and Audit Committee in terms of what that other thematic will be. So yeah, the link to the consultation obviously is in that in the audit plan there in paragraph 24. I don't know, Neil, do you want to pick up on anything in terms of the grant claims, or are you happy for me to move on?
I'm happy to move on unless
Okay.
there's any specific questions on those.
Obviously, you'll be aware in terms of the statutory audit functions outlined there in paragraphs 28 and 29. And then we set out the fee, and you'll have seen that the fee hopefully be aware that we undertook some consultation on our fees back before Christmas, and that your fee is set out in paragraph 33 in Exhibit 3, which is around a 2.6% increase. I mean, the consultation paper set out, why we feel, we've had to raise our fees. We've been absorbing costs for a number of years and been able to do that through delivering efficiencies, but we have found that that's not sustainable anymore. So yes, your fee is set out there in that exhibit. And then just to draw your attention to the audit team. So the audit team is remaining unchanged. So you'll be familiar with all the people set out in the audit team. And then the timetable, and again, the rough timescales for the various aspects of the audit programme are set out there for you in Exhibit 5. And in terms of the particular projects, we'll keep you posted in terms of when those may be and when they'll take place, and we'll discuss those with officers as well. But happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all three. Any questions from members? I've got a query on what you referred to, Sarah Jane, on the thematic review and scheduled care. That's really an extremely important one on this moment in time, particularly because we got patients in hospitals throughout Wales who are well enough to be discharged but can't be because there is no space in, for example, residential care homes. Have you any idea when that work is likely to start and how long that will take?
At the moment, we're currently scoping that piece of work. I should have said it is a piece of work that we'll be doing jointly with our health audit team. So it is a health social care joint project. I'm hoping after the elections at the next governance audit committee, we'll be able to give you an update in terms of timescales, but I know we are currently scoping that. So at this stage, Chair, I don't know any further than that, but obviously it is a priority kind of piece of work that we know it's important, as you said, for all the reasons that you've just described why we need to be doing this. But as soon as I know any more, Chair, we can send you that information.
Yeah, and I presume as far as the local authority side, that your teams will be going into obviously more than one authority, a number of authorities of varying sizes.
It will be done at all 22 councils.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from any members? No. Any comments from members? Yes, Councillor Chris Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In terms of reference to that particular piece of work, I think that would be absolutely welcomed. Sarah Jane, I'm not sure. I know that Audit Wales fairly recently did a piece of work on a focus of regional partnership boards. I don't know whether that work is, because obviously I was interviewed as part of that piece of work, and it kind of goes in tandem. I don't know whether that report's been published now, but that actually might be a useful thing if it is in the public domain, whether it's worth sharing with committee members for them to give them a bit of a sense, of some of the work that the Regional Partnership Board has done in terms of investment into health and social care, particularly across Merthyr Tydfil, Bridgend and Rhondda Cynon Taf as a potentially a bit of a starter for 10.
Yes. Thank you, Chair, if you're happy for me to respond.
Yep.
So thanks, Councillor Davis. I think you're referring to the piece of work that we're doing around the Cynon Taf Morgana it was a baseline governance review focusing on the Transformation Programme Leadership Board, where we met with the officers a couple of weeks ago to share our findings, did a presentation to share our findings, and we're currently drafting that report. So we're hoping that will be with the 4 bodies fairly shortly. But obviously once that's been cleared and agreed, and we've agreed that we will clear it with them as a joint entity as opposed to 4 separate comments, then obviously we'll be happy to that report will be published, and we'll be happy to bring that back to Audit Committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any comments? Any further comments? No? Thank you all from the Wales Audit Office for your input there. Right, we now on to item 5, That's the update from the Fleet and Highway Services on the recommendations made in the Vehicles Fuel System Report 21-22. I don't know who's taking this report. Is that you, Darren?
Sorry, Chair, can I give a bit of an introduction?
Yes, sorry. I'm
That's
rude.
fine, thank you. So as
did
part
your
of the
report.
audit plan, sorry, as
Go on,
part of the audit plan for 21-22, an audit review was undertaken of the vehicles' fuel systems in operation within the authority. As a result of fieldwork and testing undertaken, a final report was produced and a total of 12 recommendations were made, giving an overall audit opinion of limited assurance. 9 of the recommendations made were accepted by management and 3 were rejected. Governance and Audit Committee requested the Fleet and Highways officers attend Governance and Audit Committee to give an update on the progress made against the recommendations within the report. So on that note, if I can pass you over to Darren and Johan to present their update, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, afternoon all. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to attend this afternoon's audit committee and to answer any questions you have regarding the recent fleet audit. Do you want me to go through them one by one, or do you just want to ask questions on the ones that are there?
Well, I don't mind you going through them one by one, but you've agreed, I think, 9 of them. Is that the case?
That's correct, yeah.
Hopefully the committee members have read the report, so they'd be okay with that. So frankly, I'm happy for members to ask questions on any report. Before I go to Councillor Chaplin, Johan, did you wish to say anything?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you for. First of all, I want to say thank you to Helen for her patience, as the audit was started in 2020, completed in 2022, mainly remotely during the pandemic with high sick absence, working from home, well, turnover of staff in Fleet. So I started, I think, during the audit. So inevitably was discover some errors. I don't think anybody was prepared for the last 2 years. So a few recommendations, we describe the as procedure errors, but I believe they were just isolated operational errors that had been dealt with as they happen, and I'm confident that they won't happen again.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Chaplin?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just reading on the report, just observation. It says on 1.2 on the currently it is not possible to monitor the effective, efficient use of electric cars as the electric charge draws its power from the civic centre, and currently it's not cost effective to invest £4,000 to £6,000. I understand a full fleet management system may be £4,000 to £6,000, but there are energy monitoring equipment that is either smartphone or Android enabled that can be put at a specific place, and that's only £100 or £200. Have you considered putting in a low cost solution and monitoring it that way?
Yeah, the energy management, the building energy management does have something like that in place. But from fleet point of view, you wouldn't monitorize the use of vehicle.
Well, you could monitor the use of the electric at that point and log it to get to understand its usage. Yes, to say that you need a £4,000 to £6,000 system to manage one electrical point. There are other ways you could do it. And as I said, I understand as the fleet increases and goes to electric, you probably do need a proper fleet management system. But at this stage, I think you could be looking at just monitoring that one point with putting a node in there.
That is correct, but it will be a waste of money if we thinking that in the future we're going to have a comprehensive system to monitorize all the vehicles, smart charging systems for all the vehicles. The way we are at the moment, being only 2 chargers, is like having a fleet of 2 vehicles and installing a pump in your yard. You won't be cost efficient. So the vehicle tell us the power of the battery. They tell us how many miles they do. So we'll just to have that in writing, will just be a waste of time at this point.
But will you be logging the charges on the point to get an idea? So you will be getting an idea of how much it's costing you per mile for the vehicle?
Yeah, we know the size of the battery, how many kilowatts go in the battery, how many times they charge a week. So we got a rough idea how much. It'll cost us about £300 a year at the moment per vehicle.
Okay.
So it's not an extreme
Yeah.
to investment.
And we're looking to do potentially a journal transfer from the departments as well. I think it's IT and who's the other one you won?
Waste wardens.
Yeah, waste wardens. So we know roughly what the energy usage is. So we would just do a journal transfer from our department at the moment until, you know, a better monitoring system's in place.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can do it manually till you can, obviously, when you get enough vehicles, it's going to be cost effective to put a proper system in.
Yeah,
okay.
That is planned. That is the plan.
That is planned, yeah.
Okay, thank you both. Much appreciated. That's me finished, Clive.
Thanks. And just to add to that, as you both know, Johan and Darren, in a recent Neighbourhood Services Scrutiny Committee, we discussed, amongst other things, the size of the fleet. And the answer you gave to one of my questions was that by 2025, so hopefully within the next 3 years, 78 of those 127 vehicles will all be electric. So you've got to gear up with the systems there in readiness for the increase in the fleet year by year.
We totally agree with you on it. That is something we're looking at, but at the end of the day, we want to be cost effective with the investment. If the number of vehicles are there, it becomes cost effective then to monitor them. With only 2 currently, it isn't that cost effective to do it. So as more vehicles will come online, we will do that.
Yeah, if may I add, 2 years ago, people were just talking about electric vehicles. We didn't have anyone trying. We didn't even know if they're going to work, the range, if it's suitable, if they're going to be efficient for work, because that was the main problem. So in 2020, we tried the first vehicle. 2021, we added the other one. We are now confident that the range is sufficient. We are confident that the drivers can, they use them, they like them, they enjoy driving them. The members of public respond positively when they see them. So now we're looking to accelerate the change. We already ordered another 12 chargers, 10 in Unit 20, another 2 in Unit 5. They should be installed in the next couple of months. And these ones, they do have their own management system and a back office to give us the indication of who's charging, how much energy they use, and how many times they charge, all the information needed.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? If not, I got one or two. It's on page 32 and it's 2.1. And this refers to the list of vehicles located at the RCT Highways Depot in Abercynon. And it says there that the list should include each vehicle, the vehicle registration number, and the designated fleet number. I think that you didn't entirely agree with that particular recommendation. Am I right in saying that these vehicles will be coming out of the Abercynon depot and going into a depot in Merthyr Tydfil? I seem to remember somewhere on Goatbill Road. Am I correct?
No, currently the highways department is run from RCT's depot in Abercynon. So obviously we got the main fleet list is held by fleet, and each department then got a list of their own vehicles. Now the sort of the question that was asked by audit here was a list of vehicles, and audit had a list of vehicles. Now if they'd asked for a list of vehicles with the required details, they'd have had the list of vehicles with the required details. So we don't agree with this because the question that was asked was the wrong question. Now the information is already held within the various departments. So, the detailed information, if you'd asked the question correctly, the information would have been provided.
Yeah, all right. It's only certain vehicles down there, but Am I right in saying that sometime in the not too distant future, those particular vehicles will be housed within the Merthyr Tydfil County Borough?
Between now and October, at some point, they will be housed in Unit 5, yeah.
Right. Okay. Ellen, do you want to make any comment on that?
Sorry, I'm just trying to go back to my original email because I was sure that I asked for more detail of the vehicles, but I can't find that email at the moment, and you know.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can't comment, sorry, at the moment. But if I find it in the duration, I'll ask if I can come back in, if that's okay, please.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. And there was another one on page 37, 3.6, where you further to an incident with the fuel card system was not a true reflection of the UK fuel cards in operation, and it was an isolated incident due to a lack of staff resources. Where was the exact lack of staff resources?
Right, this has happened when in fleet was somebody before I started, and the fleet officer, one of them was working from home, the other one was off sick, so nobody was actually in the office. Now, when the drivers needed a new card, the person was ordering the card, but instead of taking them off the system, they were just cutting them off and put them in a drawer. So the cards were destroyed, but nobody had access to those cards, but the system didn't show it because they were still on our system. It's pretty much like when you got a bank card, instead of calling the bank and cancel it, you just cut it off and you put it in a bin and you consider the issue dealt with. In practical works, I know it wasn't perfect. Since then, we did update the list, and now it reflects the reality. Okay.
So obviously the system's altered since you've been there, Ewan.
Yeah, it's up to date now. I even added, and I'm probably happy to see that all the departments per card, so it's easier from somebody, because I did see Helen's point of view when somebody from outside wouldn't really understand the departments and how it works. It's just two people working in fleet, it's me and the fleet officer. We know the vehicles pretty much inside out in the department, so to us it's easy to understand the system. But now we added each department per each card, so if you click on any vehicle registration, you know who's getting charged for it and who's using that vehicle.
Right. Okay. And on page 38, 3.7 there, you disagreed with that recommendation, and I read your disagreed statement. The responsibility for checking and authorising invoices should not lie with the Central Fleet Management Services invoices. Invoices should be checked and authorised by the service managers' budget holders. Fleet would not know on a daily basis what works the vehicles will be carrying out, as this would affect the fuel usage and Fleet have no control over it. So my question there is, are the budget holders, managers, checking these on a very regular basis?
As far as I'm aware, they do have financial audits regularly with the account managers all the time. So any excess consumption, they will be discussed with them.
Right. So you've disagreed with that recommendation. Could you perhaps enlarge on why you're both disagreed with that statement?
Yeah, sure. I can. Yeah, I mean, we got waste department, parks, highways. The vehicles we got, like recycling vehicles, for example. Sometimes the mileage might not be there, but the vehicle is parked at the end of the street using the bins lift just to collect recycling materials and refuse. Same with the galley machine. Sometimes it's parked for half an hour or an hour just performing suction from the drains. The sweeper might be stopped in the same area. So to me, I can see the mileage of the vehicle. I can see the liters consumed, but that's about it. I don't know what job that vehicle's been sent to do. So they might use, I don't know, 40 liters of diesel in one day, on 5 miles, and I will say, oh, that's wrong. But then Darren will know that he sent the galley machine to perform suction 5 miles away from the depot, and he stood there for 7 hours probably doing that. So it's pretty much, I can calculate the miles per gallon, but it wouldn't be accurate because, again, the vehicles having PTO, they gotta be running the engine to get the power on the vehicle, but they don't do any mileage. That makes any sense? So I wouldn't know why did they have to fill up twice in a week when it's been used for 50 miles. Only the account manager will know that, or the supervisor which send the vehicles to jobs. Also absence, if people are off.
The only
Yeah.
problem sorry, if I could just come in, the only
Yes.
problem we've got at the moment is nobody of any sort of knowledge to fleet management services are authorising those invoices. They are being they are being authorised by central services who have no involvement with fleet. So I think we made the recommendation that somebody at least central fleet services could authorise them. They would have more knowledge than somebody working in sort of, you know, like the admin team.
Yeah, I agree to you with to a point there, Ellen, but again, it's got to come down to the service manager. I got 2 hats on by here. So with my highways hat on, I authorize my fuel budget because all my fuel comes from RCT. I get a monthly invoice. So I can scrutinize that and I can make the call whether that's a valid amount. Now, I know what you were saying. It is like the other departments, their fuel invoices are going straight to admin and that's getting authorized. But again, you know, I feel that should go to the relevant department and not to your one, because your one will not, as he pointed out, know how much that fuel has been used.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I know how many holidays the guys take. I know what type of work the guys are working on a daily basis. So if the fuel is being used at a higher level for, I will make a call. I'll know why. And if I got any issues, then we can go to the tracker reports and look at it in a little bit more detail.
yeah.
But, you know, that responsibility should sit with a service manager.
So further to that then, being sort of central fleet services and having all the central sort of invoices and the data with regards to the UK fuel cards, would you be liaising with the service area managers to pass the sort of invoices on to them? Because at the time of the audit, they weren't receiving budget information either, were they?
So
Sort of any expenditure on their fleet, unless they
Following-
requested it.
yeah, following your recommendation, we did start sending a fuel report every month to all the departments for the total amount of fuel, so they can spread it out and they can see if something has gone wrong. But like I said, to me, I can only see how much the total per department is.
So is it maybe we could send these reports in advance, because I know you can extract data from the UK fuel system. So could we maybe send that data to the service area managers prior to the invoices being downloaded from the system? So at least then going forward, they could see the values of what they're going to be charged. They could check that against your reports of the UK fuel system, and they could take ownership of that expenditure then, and they could sign the invoices. Is that something we could do sort of going forward, that you could liaise with the relevant managers?
Yeah, like I say, I already sent the report at the first week of each month for the previous month.
It's just getting the invoices authorised then, isn't it? You know, it doesn't sit well that admin are authorising them at the moment when they have no involvement. Great.
Yeah, I'm happy with that as long as you one can provide the information. Yeah, I got no problem with that.
Okay. Councillor Jeremy Davis?
Yeah, you have to leave now, Chair.
Okay, and you're coming back, you hope?
Yeah.
Okay. Just to go back to a point that you'd given as an example, Darren, about the gully suckers, because we've all seen them as part of their job is they stop, then they have to make sure that it's the equipment is in the drain, sucking it out. When it's standing in, it's still system is working, and still, and what you're saying is, although it's not moving as such, it's still using up fuel to run the system.
Anything with a PTO, street lighting van, gully machine, sweeper, even the lorries when they tip in, bar the vans would have an electric one, but anything over 7.5 ton will have a PTO. So anything with a PTO, the engine would still be active, although they may not be incurring any mileage on the clock.
Right.
So, you know, the fuel would be being used.
Right. Okay, that clarifies that. Any members got any other questions? No? Any comments from anyone? I just, if there are no comments, I'd just like to say that I think we were justified in bringing this report into the Governance and Audit Committee. I know you've accepted 9 of the recommendations, but I think it was important for us to have a look at this in a bit more depth, and to bring out the answers to the various questions. So if there are no other comments, I'll go to the recommendations, which is on page 29, or the recommendation is 1.2.1. Members consider the update provided by Engineering and Highways Services. So I'll take a vote on that, and as I say, it'll be the same as the full council. All those who wish to abstain, vote no. All those who wish to vote no, vote no. All those who are happy to accept the recommendations, vote no, please.
Chair, I'm on my phone, as I mentioned pre-meeting, so I can't raise my hand, but I'll accept.
Right, I'll
The vote is carried, Chair.
yes, yeah, it is. Okay, thanks, Declan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Take our hands down, including my own. Right. Okay, and can I thank Darren and Ewan? You're welcome to stay, Ollie. I'm quite certain you've got plenty of other things to do. So, see you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks all anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Then the next report is item 6. That's the draft anti-money laundering policy and draft anti-tax evasion policy, pages 41 to 76. This is, to say the least, quite a complex report, and Mark is going to take us through it.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'll try and keep this fairly brief for perhaps the reasons that the Chair has outlined, but just by way of introduction, this report follows on from the recent counter-fraud strategy and the anti-fraud, bribery and corruption policy that was discussed at the Governance and Audit Committee in January, which was also then agreed at Council last week. So what we've got is 2 additional policies which are intended to work alongside those 2 other strategy and the policy I've already referred to. And they are the draft anti-money laundering policy in Appendix A, and Appendix B is the draft anti-tax evasion policy. And what we'd like to do, similar to what we did with the other strategy and policy we referred to, is give the opportunity for any comments from the committee, and then we will be able to take the policies to full council for approval in due course. So what I perhaps can do, Chair, is take us through sort of the key points, if you like, of both policies, and then happy to take any questions that anybody may have. The first one, the anti-money laundering policy, the council is committed to the highest possible standards of conduct. Although as a local authority, it is not directly covered by the requirements of current anti-money laundering legislation. It has responded to the guidance from the finance and legal professions and developed an anti-money laundering policy and accompanying guidance notes to provide advice and assistance where money laundering is encountered or suspected. Money laundering is the process of concealing sources of money. Money evidently gained through crime is called dirty money, and money that has been laundered to appear as if it came from legitimate sources, clean money. Money can be laundered by many methods which vary in complexity and sophistication. Historically, legislation to tackle the laundering of the proceeds of crime was aimed at the financial and investment sector. However, it is subsequently recognised that those involved in criminal conduct were able to clean criminal proceeds through a wider range of businesses and professional activity. And this policy confirms that the Council's commitment to ensuring the relevant legislation is complied with. And what I'll do in a second, I'll go to the contents page of the policy and just sort of highlight the sort of key elements of it. The second policy we've referred to is the anti-tax evasion policy, which is attached as Appendix B. Now, the government, as in the Westminster government, believes that relevant bodies should be criminally liable where they fail to prevent those who act for or on their behalf from criminally facilitating tax evasion. So the council wants to make sure that we are providing excellent services to the residents of the county borough, and all our staff, permanent and temporary, councillors, partners, agency workers and contractors, an important role to play in achieving this goal, and we expect everyone to be committed to high standards of service which are based on the principles of honesty, openness and accountability. So this policy again supports the wider anti-fraud, bribery and corruption strategy and policy, which sets out the key responsibilities with regard to fraud prevention and what to do if fraud or financial irregularity is suspected, and the action that will be taken by management. So if I can refer you to, I'm scrolling down through the agenda papers, page 46 of the anti-money laundering policy. It's basically the contents page there. It sets out in the policy the introduction, the scope, what the key messages are, what is money laundering, as I've already outlined, the obligations of the council. Identifies the money laundering reporting officer, and that's the Steve Jones as the head of finance and section 151 officer, and then Adele Lewis as the deputy 151 officer is the deputy MLRO, and then it identifies some potential money laundering situations and what the consequences are relating to failing to report offences or suspicions. What the reporting procedure is, and various forms and pieces of documentation linked to that. So as the chair mentioned, it's quite complex and it doesn't happen very often, very rarely in reality, but we do have to have a policy in place that sets out what needs to happen if, for example, large cash payments are attempted to be made to the council, for example. It's not something that happens very often, but this policy sets out what should happen in those sorts of circumstances and who any concerns or suspicions should be reported to. So as much as anything, it's about making sure that the council has a policy in place, that the relevant staff are aware in very high level terms. Look, if there's anything slightly suspicious, you suspect anything untoward, who to go to and who to flag up any concerns in relation to that. So the policy is fairly comprehensive. A number of authorities locally have adopted the same policy, and we've had a role in pulling this together on behalf of the authority for members' consideration. Similar principle then in relation to the tax evasion, anti-tax evasion policy. If I'm scrolling down to the relevant page, bear with me. There we go. Yeah, on page 66 of the agenda pack, again sets out the contents of the anti-tax evasion policy. There's the introduction, the policy statement, who the policy applies to, the various pieces of legislation that are relevant, who can be held accountable for tax evasion, the prevention procedures, and sets out a number of definitions linked to this, the need for risk assessments and the areas of risk that potentially could be experienced by the authority. But the principal one is around value-added tax, VAT, around potentially fraudulent invoices, where companies may be either quoting a false or an invalid VAT number and don't hand over then VAT to Majesty's Revenue and Customs. But there are some other areas, but that's the principal one linked to VAT, and basically how the policy is intended to work. So as I said earlier, in relation to the anti-money laundering policies, about having the appropriate policies in place. So just at a very high level, tax staff are aware of what's expected of them in particular key service areas. So it's mainly around finance, legal, and perhaps estates as well. But generally, it's just about having a policy in place that people, relevant staff, need to know who to go to when they suspect anything untoward may be taking place. I think I'll pause at that point, Chair, and happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from any members? No. Nobody's raised their hand. I'm not surprised. Any comments from any members? And as you say, Councillor Chris Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. It was just to say thanks to Mark and the team really for the work they put into drafting this policy for committees, and ultimately at some point, obviously, Council's consideration. Thanks, Mark. Diolch I chi ar y tîm. Ni'n gwerthfawrogi fe. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Diolch.
Yeah, I support that. It's as I said, somebody's got to put together, and as Mark has said, this will go to council. Well, may well be the next administration's council meeting. No, we don't know. Any other comments from anyone? If not, if we go to page 41 and the recommendations under 2, there's 2.1, the draft anti-money laundering policy and the draft anti-tax evasion policy be noted. 2.2, the draft anti-money laundering policy and the draft anti-tax evasion policy be discussed prior to submission to council for approval. So I'll go through the vote on that one. Anyone wishing to abstain, vote no, please. Anybody wishing to vote against, please vote no. All those happy to vote for, please vote no. That carried, mine? Yes, it is.
Yes,
now.
Chair. Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. You can put your hands down. Item 7 is the internal audit information reports. There's 2 referred there on cyber security and the major financial systems and housing benefits 21-22. Does anybody wish to say anything? Mark or Helen?
Perhaps if I just comment briefly, Chair. The first one there, cybersecurity, we've given a substantial assurance opinion, which is not something that we give on a regular basis, so that's positive. Helen did the audit, working closely with colleagues in IT, particularly Ryan, James, for example, and Richard Evans. Yeah, we did have a bit of a debate around the opinion on this one, not because there was anything wrong, because the authority, I think, has got everything that it reasonably expected to have in place, but by the nature of cybersecurity, it's an ever-changing sort of landscape, if you like, with different things being attempted all of the time. You know, every organisation, every local authority, there's attempted sort of attacks and hacks and scams taking place all of the time. So I suppose that's all I wanted to say is we've given substantial assurance that all the things that should be in place seem to be in place, but that's no guarantee, unfortunately. That doesn't mean to say that something may go wrong tomorrow or next week or the week after, because the weakest link is all of us who use IT on a daily basis. Any one of us could, fall for a scam or click on a link that we shouldn't do. So it's an ongoing process of making sure staff and all users are aware of being careful and not sort of falling for suspicious emails and so on. But some of these things are very clever, and unfortunately somebody at some point will perhaps do something that they shouldn't do. But nevertheless, substantial assurance being given, but it's an ongoing process of keeping on top of of these potential issues as they arise. But pleased to be able to give a substantial assurance on that. And then on the housing benefits audit, we given a reasonable assurance on that particular audit with 11 recommendations. Housing benefit is quite a complex area, as we know. It was touched on in the Audit Wales report in terms of grant claims. There's so many different aspects to it, but again, we were able to give an opinion of reasonable assurance on that particular piece of work as well. So that's positive. Thank you, Chair. Okay.
Anybody got any questions? Right. I won't take a vote on this because if any of the members wanted to call these in, well, it'll be the new governance and audit committee in the next administration. And as far as I know, we've had no requests so far for that. So what Mark has done has brought us up to date, really, and I agree entirely, particularly in relation to the cyber security. That's a very extremely difficult one, and everybody, as you quite rightly say, has to be vigilant all the time they are using it, and we're all using it more so nowadays. So thank you for that. We now go on to item 8. That's the reflection and evaluation of the meeting. As far as I'm concerned, we have dealt with every item there and raised some pertinent questions so far, and that we were fully justified in calling in the Fleet and Highways Services fuel system report there. So that's all I have to say on that. Item 9, any other business deemed urgent, but I just want to refer to a few things. And that is, I understand from Mark that the new Governance Audit Committee has to be composed of 3 lay members, and Bob Williams is he'll be carrying on as a lay member, and you've made 2 appointments of Martin Veal and Sue Erickson, and I think they've just waiting for different forms to be signed by them, but those will be the 3 lay members on the next Governance and Audit Committee. I think most of you, if not all of you, know what my views on that is. It's part of the Act, but I personally think it's a retrograde step to not have, or be able to have, or a choice of, an elected member as chair of the Governance and Audit Committee. But only time will tell if that's will be working and effective in every local authority. I also wish to congratulate Helen Harwood, who's last week has been appointed Audit Assistant Manager, covering both the Tydfil and RCT. And that's very good news for all of us who know Helen, and I've known her for some years working in the department there. This is obviously my last meeting as chair, because there will be no elected member as chair in the new administration. And it's my second stint as chair of audit in the last nearly 2.5 years. I was audit chair some years ago in a previous administration. I've always found the work of this committee very interesting and extremely important. So I'd like to thank all the Wales audit staff who regularly attend these meetings, all the members who've given of their time to take part, and particularly I want to thank the internal regional audit staff, Mark Thomas, Lisa Cumston, Helen Harwood, who attended these meetings. Clearly, as the chair, I've had to work closely with them, and of them all, I've probably known Mark Thomas probably the longest, because he, in his previous role, was head of audit here in Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council. So I want to thank yourselves and all of you for everything that's been done over the years. And I can't think of anything else, but that's the end of the long goodbye. Councillor Chris Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to echo a lot of the things that you said there. I've obviously come in at the very tail end in this last quarter of, I think this may be my third Governance and Audit Committee, but I wanted to pay thanks to all the people that you've said, Audit Wales, Regional Internal Audit Committee members, but particularly yourself. You know, you absolutely chair this committee with passion, enthusiasm, diligence, and the hard work of this committee in terms of holding the officers, the administration and others to account. You will be a hard act to follow, Councillor Jones, as chair, and as you said, it's a case of watching this space of what the appointment of a lay member of the chair will bring in line with the new legislation. But I suppose gives me the pleasure as the portfolio member to exercise my thanks to you, committee, and all the hardworking officers. This is an important committee in terms of holding the authority officers and members within it to account for good governance and good audit. So, thank you to everybody. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you for those kind words, Councillor Davis. It was remiss of me not to refer to yourself and before you, Councillor Andrew Barry, who were portfolio holders during the last 5 years. So, with no further to do, can I thank you all for your attendance? Oh, Councillor Barry, sorry.
Thank you, Clive. Last on in this momentous moment. Just to reiterate everything that's been said, obviously thanks to Mark and the team that we've worked for. But as sort of portfolio member for the last 4.5 years, it's been a pleasure to work with you, Clive. You don't give us an easy run. I think you've acquired legendary status in terms of your view on detail of these reports, and I think I do concur with you in terms of I think it's a retrograde step. We've spoken a bit previously in audit, and I support what you say. I think possibly we'll be revisited in the future, and I genuinely hope so. And I hope one day we'll see you back in this chair, because you've done a great job and you've served the county borough well with your diligence and your eye for detail. And I think it's a highly important role, and you lead the way in terms of how scrutiny needs to be done, Clive. So congratulations to you. Wish you all the best in the coming election, and thank you all for your work over the last 5 years. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you, Clive.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Councillor Tovey.
Yes, I was just going to say, sorry I was late joining the meeting. I had connection problems, so I'm very sorry about that. And I've enjoyed being on this committee the past couple of years. So best of luck in the election as well.
Yeah. Thank you. You joined us in the end. That was the main thing.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Great to see you.
Thank you all.
All the best.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.